Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimish Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting each episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast, the people it's reaching. My objective was to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey, and I love the fact I get to do this on a regular basis. And thank you for everyone that listens and shares messages and supported this podcast. I really do feel like it's guided. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And I love what I get to do. I get to guide people to truly be their authentic selves, to release the programming, to shine their light, to become what we're here to do, to live their destiny, to live their purpose. And I get to do that on a daily basis. So feeling very, very, very blessed. Also with this podcast, I get to interview some amazing, amazing hosts and guests, and it's such a beautiful thing, and I'm excited to have Suhina on this podcast. I'm excited for this conversation, and it reminds me of the beautiful synchronicity of the universe. I met Suhina in a recent trip to Singapore, and kind of the way it happened, when you take a step back and you look at how the universe works, it's so beautiful. Justin, a really good friend, decided to introduce me to somebody he was connected with, Moana. We had a couple of calls and we connected, and I was going to be in Singapore. So she was like, well, why don't we meet for a coffee? So we did. We had a great conversation. And during that conversation, she got some inspiration. She's like, oh my God, you need to meet Suhina. You need to meet her. And she got really excited. And just so happened that Suhina, I think, lived 10 minutes walk away. And it just happened to be free. So she came along. And it's just the beautiful synchronicity. Then Moana had to go, so she left us to it. And we had such a beautiful conversation. And we were I remember we were in this cafe, and at the time, Cena kind of got inspired to share some light language. So we were in this cafe, and she channeled a beautiful light language. So it's just, I love the universe when you're in when you just allow things to happen. There's so much beauty there. So, Cena, thank you for being on this podcast. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But to start, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone for listening. It really is an honor for me to be able to be here. I'm always really humbled every time I get the opportunity to speak and to share a bit about my journey and what I've learned along the way through my experiences as well. So for those of you who don't know me, of course, I'm Suhina. I'm South African. Been living in Singapore now for quite some time, for about 12 years. In my current phase in life, I would say I'm an entrepreneur, working in a technology company. I always find it really hard to sort of attribute all of these labels, Nimesh, to be honest. So sometimes I don't even know how to describe who I am, to be honest, in all honesty. And in some ways, I kind of feel like I know who I am, but then I don't know who I am. But yeah, I guess in real world terms, that's who I am. A startup founder based in Singapore, working in the space of technology and healthcare. And of course, because AI is all the help, of course, that's a key part of what we do as well.
Beautiful, and you're a soul having a human experience, and it was your spiritual energy that definitely connected us, and just your openness on this journey. And actually, even the conversation before we started recording, we were talking about the force versus flow, and I really do feel like the energy right now is regular listeners have heard me talk about the planet and what we're going through, shifting from the divine masculine to divine feminine. And masculine is all about control, right? It's all about kind of power, hence the politics and the wars, and very much forcing. But for me, as we move into feminine, that's so much more about flow, more about connecting us with our gifts, shifting from I think to I feel. And with whatever the planet's going through right now, I do feel that we're all feeling a shift. We're all feeling like something's happening inside us, around us. And change is interesting for a human, right? There's a lot of people say I love change, but yeah, you only love change when you can see it coming and you know what it looks like. And the change that for the planet is coming right now, I feel like it's very much something we've never really experienced, the magnitude of the shift. So I'm excited about it. Was also a little bit nervous. I guess the human in me, the spirit in me, is excited. But Sina, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what do you feel about the current energy? What do you feel in terms of what the planet's going through in the shift energetically? What are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot
I'm
because I
sure. I'm
do
sure.
feel
When
a
I
lot.
asked you that question, yeah, I could feel it. I could feel it.
I feel a lot. I would say that it's there's a part of me that feels so much joy. I feel like it's almost like the time has come. And at the same time, there's like this sense of this uncomfortableness, I would say, that we're not really used to feeling. It's sort of like unsettling, just feeling uncomfortable. And I'm not sure how used to feeling uncomfortable we really truly are, to be honest. Because normally, if we're uncomfortable, we sort of look to change things or look for something of that's more comfortable. So for me, it's been. I mean, as you know, Nimesh. I mean, I literally do feel pretty much everything. So it's been an interesting journey of like just really sort of being like, what's going on with my energetic body? Because I feel everything. Because like 1 minute I'm like, I can feel like my heart being like in full blossom, and it's a beautiful feeling. It feels like so full and so radiant, but it's also a very unusual feeling because it's something
I love it.
I'm used to either, right? And then there's times when like I feel like the energy is more like in my head, and then I know that it's probably more anxious type of energy. So it really depends, and I think also the environment in which we're in, I think plays also a really big difference. Who we interact with, where are we? So I think for me, that's sort of been sort of also just being a little bit more aware of my environment. But yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's been very uncomfortable, to be honest.
And it's a feeling of uncomfortableness is for me. That's where the expansion comes from, right? That feeling of being. I'm wondering if we could embrace that feeling of being uncomfortable and having that honest conversation with ourselves about how do we really feel about the shifts that's going on. Sometimes we just, sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? You just kind of, you almost ignore that feeling of uncomfortableness and just keep going. I always recommend kind of being honest with how do you really feel? So, what if that feeling of uncomfortableness that maybe we're all feeling is actually an opportunity to grow, to step into our highest version of ourselves? Because I feel the uncomfortableness is also coming from all of us are going through a shift, whether it's a rebirth, whether it's a reset, and we feel the change. We try and hold on to the old version of ourselves, but the more we try and hold on, the more I feel that we're going to get resistance and that feeling of uncomfortableness is going to increase. So, how do you feel about embracing that feeling of being uncomfortable and maybe even enjoying it?
Yeah, I would say that like part of me feels sad. And I think that that's perfectly normal to feel sad and to acknowledge that. And I think this goes also a little bit into sort of the conversation around, what we were talking about with regards to force versus flow. Because uh, if I look at the life that I've lived up until now, everything has been very forceful. And if I look at like why the force, right? What was it really driven by? And uh, and I think this part is what really hurts the most. But I think it's really important to acknowledge the hurt because what I realized is a lot of what I've achieved in my life, if I look at where did the motivation come from. So I'm not saying everything in my life was motivated by rage. However, at the same time, I would say that there was an element of rage. There was an element of like oh, I need to prove to people this, or like someone told me I can't do it, so like I'm gonna prove you wrong. Watch me, right? Which comes from a place of such aggression, right? Like I I I I knew that that was what I was doing, but I guess I didn't quite fully appreciate that it.
You did it anyway.
Yeah, but I guess I wasn't. I didn't have the awareness, Nimesh. I didn't understand that this was coming from a place of like deep-seated like resentment, contentment, and a lot of that stems from like my childhood as well, you know, from my experiences. And I didn't realize that up until today, funnily enough, which is kind of funny. Everything in perfect timing.
Always,
Talking
always.
about
I love it.
flow.
I love you. Yeah.
So I would say that's that. I think that's one feeling that I feel is sadness, and I think, and then hurt because I realized that I was hurting myself because every time I was going against flow, I was depleting my own life force, and which led me to being actually really unwell. It's really incredible that I've achieved what I've achieved, uh, given the amount of force I've used just to live life. It's weird. Imagine living life with force, but at the same time, you're draining your own life force by using that much force. It's like this complete imbalance in like your energy.
But isn't it interesting in terms of what if that was your destiny? What if that was you actually being in flow? You being angry at certain situations, we wouldn't be having this conversation
Not at
if there
all.
was an element of flow. And this is, I mean, just take this conversation, right? If you could have, you know, when Juana called you that day, you were at home, you were doing whatever, you could have quite easily said, oh, you know what, I just want to chill and be in my own energy. But you were like, well, okay, let's go with the flow. I don't know, you know, and just, you know, but even you getting angry at certain situations and getting the determination when somebody says, you know, you can't do something, you do it. You could argue that's forcing. You could also argue that the universe is pushing you in certain ways to expand you, to guide you to being in flow.
Oh,
Because none of
100%.
us are time machine, right? But we, it's like, I want you to feel the beauty of how far you've come, and also knowing that you listen to your messages, you felt the nudges, whether you knew it or not.
Oh, 100, look, 100%, Namesh. I think it's also important for me to acknowledge some of the deeper truths, right? I think it's very easy it's very easy for me to see in some ways. I mean, I would say like before I wouldn't see the beauty in the situation. I know that at times I can escape from like the reality, right? Because I can see rainbows and butterflies and everything that's just so magical. Because it really is. The world's a really magical, beautiful, beautiful place. Um, but there are times where I realize that there's definitely something else that like, I can feel like there's something that's like holding me back. And you know, as I start to do the healing, I want to invite those wounds. I want to invite feeling what those wounds are when I'm ready to feel them, and then embrace them for the deeper truths. Because once I do, I allow myself to fall into an even deeper state of surrender, right? And to me, surrender, it really feels like being held, for lack of a better word. It makes you feel so held. And you know, as we go through this journey of this change, for me, it's almost as if I'm going through this process of like falling into like a deeper and deeper surrender, if that makes any sense. Yes.
Makes so much sense. And that it's letting go, right? It's just
Yes.
trusting. It's that trust, which is actually, it's a beautiful way of describing what I feel like we're all being asked to do right now. Is to just surrender. Let go of our expectations of how we felt things should look like, and you know what we're trying to manifest, and if we're honest with ourselves, if you look through the last few years, with lockdown and everything else, nothing's really turned out how we expected it to, right? It's just, and what if we could just let go and surrender, as you said, just surrender and do a trust fall. And I get it's not easy, right? Words are easy, right? It's easy for us to talk about, what, why don't you just let go with the flow and surrender? Our human in us really struggles with that. Our spirit in us is like, oh my God, let's go, let's do it, let's surrender. And it's just acknowledging how you feel, how uncomfortable it makes you feel. I feel like is an important part of surrender.
Oh gosh, 100%. I guess that brings us to the whole point of being, right? So I think, you know, I was like, okay, Sina, let go, right? That's force, yeah? Just for reference sake, that's forcing the letting go. Yeah, if you allow yourself to just be, actually things will let go by itself. That's what I've come to learn. But part of being is also acknowledging where you are and just sort of, accepting and acknowledging the emotions as they come up, right? Because emotion at the end of the day is energy in motion. So as soon as we don't acknowledge that emotion, it just sort of gets stuck, right? And also allowing ourselves to just be, right? Like spending time to do that, like, I don't know, the 10 minutes with there's so many fancy breathwork techniques. Honestly, I keep it super simple. I listen to something that I enjoy listening to, that I'm intuitively drawn to. And then I will just, do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or however much time I have. And I'll just allow myself to be and just focus on my breath and just allow whatever comes to me, right? Which could be any topic of interest. And then just go with it.
I love that, because how often do we feel like the spiritual journey needs to be structured? I need to meditate for an hour in the morning, and I need to do, and it's that. Sometimes just trusting and just in your intuition, what do I want to listen to today, and just kind of go with the flow. That is so beautiful. I would just kind of expand on the just be bit. It's really interesting. It's like, you could say, okay, I'm just being, and that means that you just sit around all day and do nothing. And it is the balance. You've got to meet the universe halfway. So you've got to get up and out there and be seen, but also trust in the nudges. And if you get invited to certain things, just go. Just show up, keep showing up, but let go of the pressure of just, I need to move. It's a real interesting balance. So what would your advice be in terms of somebody who's like, what, I do just want to just be, but I want to understand more of what that looks like?
It's a great question. I think for me, what it's been is that as I'm doing, so you can be a state of being when you're in a state of doing, right? So for me, when I'm working and I'm writing emails, I'm normally like Speedy Gonzalez. I'm like, I'm flexing. And I'm just,
Big box,
yeah, I'm like, gotta get it done, get it done, right? Getting it done is not being. It's not being present. It's rushing through something and not actually getting it done. So I now catch myself when I'm like, that keyboard is starting to type at one hell of a speed. I'm like, okay,
the steam coming out of the keyboard.
So I'm just like, okay. So I think that a good trick that I've learned is I literally just like take a deep breath in and I just tell myself, slow down, slow down, slow down. And automatically, just like that, I'm back to being present and just being more focused in what I'm doing. And then that lets everything else just sort of dissipate. So that for me has been very helpful in terms of the state of like being. In terms of like, I think for me, one of the challenges is I had, that there is a degree of FOMO, a fear of missing out. So one of the issues or lessons for me has been how to learn how to say no. and how to know where I should spend my energy. And so for me, that's really been a learning. So what I do now is that sometimes it's not, honestly, sometimes it's not as straightforward. However, what I try to do, and then it also really depends on like the energetic shifts and where I am, because it can interfere with if I'm around different people as well, because it can interfere. But what I do, especially when I'm in my own space, and if I want to go, if I'm going to, let's just say I get invited to something, I will feel into like my heart space and what happens to my energy. If my energy starts to go lighter than a feather, like super light, I'm like, okay, this is for me. And so I will go with that. And then just let it just be. And then be like, okay, feels right. We'll just go with that. Done.
Love it.
Yeah, so if it doesn't feel that light, I'm like, and sometimes it will feel that light, and then you will enter a situation, but it's a situation that helps you to learn something.
Always.
And so, because we're always learning, right? So recently because I mean, we're in the process of fundraising, etc., and we basically entered some other program to work potentially with a partner company, quite a big partner company. It was a great opportunity. And, the terms came back, and I was like, this doesn't sound very collaborative in terms of the agreements. Like the risk was really one-sided. And so I was like, no, this doesn't seem fair to me. And so I'm like, I'm just going to say no. And when I said no and I stood up for myself, Nimesh, it's incredible. Something just changed in my energy field.
There's power to it, right?
There's
There's so much power.
100%. There's so much power in saying no as well. I grew up most of my life being a people pleaser, and I didn't know how to set boundaries, right?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I just want to go back to the example you said, because I talk a lot about this switch being from I think to I feel. It's such a simple exercise of what you did. When you're trying to make a decision, how do I feel about it? Does it feel light? Because it's like, it's hard to say no. It's like taking your example. There's a strong partner that, I guess it's a big partner that, could have on the outside look like, oh my God, and I've got to say yes to this. It's such a beautiful opportunity. But just feeling into it and realizing that actually it doesn't have a good energy, then standing in your power and saying no, there's so much power to that.
Yeah.
And how much pressure do we put ourselves under to say yes? Because of FOMO, by the way, I don't have FOMO anymore. I just have Mo. I don't have fear. No fear of missing out. I just, sometimes I'll miss out on things. So it's Mo. Sidra told me that, my mentor, but yeah, it's Mo. I'm like, okay, isn't that interesting? Why do we need to fear it?
Hey,
Why do we choose to miss out?
It's a fair point, I guess, because many people live in a sense of lack, right? So if you're living in a sense of lack, then you feel like you don't have enough, right? Or that you're not given enough opportunities, or something bigger or greater is not coming your way, right?
If I miss this opportunity, oh my God, then I've missed the
I
opportunity
missed
of
the
a lifetime, right?
opportunity, right? But I mean, I think that I was watching a series on Netflix, and it's I don't remember what it's the Netflix series is about, but I can check in case anyone is interested. But it's this lady is basically she starts dating a rabbi, and the rabbi gives this example. Honestly, I get lessons and like insights from the most random places, including Netflix. And the rabbi talks about like the story of Fiddler and the Roof, and just talking about the concept that every time like someone came to try to help to save the guy was like, no, God's coming to save me, God's coming to save me. And then he eventually died on the roof. And then like the guy asked to God, well, why didn't you come save me? And he goes, but I did. I sent you a helicopter, I sent you a boat, I sent you all of these things, and you kept saying no. So,
Because it doesn't fit the box that you were expecting. I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
I love it. I love it. And you made another. We can talk about so many different topics, but you made a point. You're watching Netflix and you got a message, and this is what right now I feel like we're receiving so many more messages. It's just our expectations of how these messages look like. And it's like, oh my God, I need to sit in meditation and receive. And there's no way I could receive messages from a Netflix program. Well, of course you can. I mean, our guides have jokes, right? They love communicating in the most random sort of ways. And so it's a great opportunity for us to say, just be open to magic. And it may not look like the way you want it to come.
Oh, 100%. So, like, I was also watching another movie on Netflix, and
How much
but
time do you spend on Netflix? I'm just
it's a
joking.
good point. But actually, no, when I decide to take some downtime and just sort of like relax, I also follow my energy as to which Netflix or series or whatever I'm going to watch. And if it feels really expansive and right, and I'm like, I'm going to watch that. Because I know that there's going to be some beauty in there for me because I feel guided to watch it, right? Nothing is a coincidence. And so I was watching this movie and they were talking about this book of existentialism and the philosophy of it. And so today, funnily enough, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I should really look up like this book and order myself a copy. And today I was really looking into the concept of what is intelligence, right? From a philosophical standpoint. And voila, existentialism comes up again. And it really is about the essence of being.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I have to confess, I struggle to find things to watch on Netflix because it's like there's so much options. I'm like, wait, hold on, do I want to watch this? And you keep scrolling. It's like, just yeah, it's an interesting human journey with Netflix for sure. But I love it, and I live my life a lot in ways of how do I feel about things. Do I apply that to Netflix? I'm not sure. Maybe I feel I do, but who knows?
Something for you to try in a mesh.
100%, 100%, definitely food for thought. Stina, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about your journey because you clearly have had an interesting life. Whatever you feel you want to share about your journey, just I'm sure the listeners are curious as to your journey into coming from South Africa and everything you experienced there, but also being a spiritual being in the corporate space is also an interesting journey. So anything you feel you want to share in your journey that just allows people to understand who you are, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Nimesh. I think I'll probably start with like, yeah, my look, I think we're all on a spiritual journey from the day that we enter this life and even before, to be honest. That being said, about, I think it was 2023, obviously being in a startup, startup is, if anyone wants to have an accelerated journey, do a startup, be an entrepreneur because you get to face your demons every day. It's amazing. Uh, Definitely not for the faint-hearted, though. But I got to a point in like early 2023, and I got really frustrated, Nimesh, because I was just like, clearly, a realization came to me, which was to lead others, you need to learn to be able to lead yourself. That was my realization. At that point,
Nice.
if you would have asked me, that would have taken me down a spiritual journey. I would have been like, whatever. Like, what are you talking about? So, but that was the level of my insight. To the start.
Yeah, 100%.
Led me down a very interesting journey. And the reason for that was like, and the reason why I was so hell bent on trying to understand how do I lead myself was because I really want to make a difference. Because at the end of the day, that's why I started the company. I talked about being angry and stuff like that for motivation, but there is in the deep heart of like what we do at the company was really seated in like really love and really wanting to make a difference in this world. I think at times I probably forgot that. Yeah, as the humans in us do. Um,
Cool.
and I ended up going on this course called Journey of Humanity, that's based in this region. And, the first part of that, the first course, at least for Journey of Humanity, for me was very eye-opening. It's the first time I got someone, someone really went through and explained this concept of energy in a way, but like masculine energy, feminine energy, and what that means. And then we did this like exercise with the the men in front of the room and the women sitting behind. I was lucky enough to have like my husband do this with me, and he was standing in front, and they were saying stuff to the women and to their significant others. And I realized that I couldn't stare at my husband for more than like a couple of minutes. And then I couldn't maintain the eye contact, and I just burst into tears. And in that moment, I realized I know how to, I think I knew how to give love at that point in time, or my perception of what love was, but I actually had no clue how to receive love. And at that
Wow.
point, I realized, wow, I've been fighting, and I've been in this masculine energy of just fight, fight, fight. And I was never in my core and my divine feminine ever. And that was a very deep realization for me. So I think that's for me when it all sort of started. Um, Then I decided, because I had such a profound, I would say, experience on this first part of the course. I'm like, there was a part two, and I'm like, yes, let's sign up for part two. Let's do it.
I'm
I'm
here. Let's
here,
sign up.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm all in. So part two of the journey was really interesting, because it was broken up into like three modules, and I did like the first 3 days. So on the first day, they got us to do a bunch of exercises, Nimesh, and then I was like, oh, my hands are warm. And then the guys were like, yay, Suhina, you're feeling energy for the first time. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm like, these people are completely nuts. Yeah. I'm like, my hands
I
are
love it,
warm.
though. I love
I'm
it.
like, I'm a physician. My hands are warm. There are so many reasons for my hands to be warm. And these guys are celebrating that I'm feeling energy. I'm like, what's wrong with them? Yeah, I know who the fool was in the end, because I don't know if it was the first night or the second night. I can't clearly recall, but I felt something surging through my body at night. And I was like, okay. This definitely feels
Love
like
it. Love
energy.
it.
I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, you guys are right. I felt energy surging through my body. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I love it.
Um, so yeah, definitely a lot of arrogance on my part. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. In all honesty, sometimes we think we know when we really don't. That's honestly been a very humbling experience. The third day of that course was also really magical, because I didn't realize at the time that it was the day of Yom Kippur, which is a day of introspection and atonement. However, I did claim forgiveness for the first time, which for me was actually really important. And something shifted in me that day. I didn't realize it at the time, but I woke up the next day and I was like, uh, I had so much energy, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And at the time I was suffering from like a number of autoimmune conditions, of which like the one which was really troubling me in a mesh was an autoimmune condition that affected my spine. So, I mean, I used to have days where I used to really struggle to get out of bed. I was injecting myself every 2 weeks. Really had issues with flexibility. Honestly, that next day I was like, I'm like,
Wow.
I'm like, this is incredible. And my husband's like, oh my gosh, can you please just like, he was really concerned, right? Because I went from being very stiff to all of a sudden feeling like I could move. I went to the gym, I think 2, 3 days later, and my personal trainer was like, what happened? How are you lifting 20% heavier weights? And I was just like, it's like couple of days ago, you couldn't do this. What happened, right? And then I realized that my body started to stretch out by itself. And I was like, what's going on and then landed up speaking to someone who kindly informed me very conveniently. It was a walk that was scheduled beforehand. It's funny because there's things that are scheduled beforehand for me that are meant
Oh.
to be in that place at that time.
And
Crazy.
when you connect the dots, you realize the universe had a plan.
100%. And he basically was very kind because he told me, Suhina, you may want to look into like Kundalini and the Kabbalah because it seems like your Kundalini has risen or is rising. And I was like, interesting. And then I went on this like research path to try and understand what's going on.
I love it.
Yeah, then ended up into these deep meditations, and then something made me call my cousin who's going through a spiritual awakening. And I called her, and she's like, "Oh, I was wondering why I kept getting this message to call you." And I was like, "Okay then." And I guess the rest is kind of like history. I think for me, one of the key things is just my health improving so much. Nimesh for me was something I can't even begin to explain. Um, and I guess, just understanding that everyone we meet in this world is a man, and really sort of appreciating the triggers for what they are, for me has been incredibly transformative. Um, and that's funny because it's almost as if you build a positive reinforcement loop as you go along, which is really beautiful.
Wow, such a beautiful story, and I mean, our physical body is such an amazing conduit for our messages. It's like, how often do we kind of look externally? Let me get a reading, or let me go for a course, but we're actually not listening to our own body. It's just, we're looking outside for the answers when actually, I'm not saying don't go on a course. Don't go. Don't work with a mentor. Of course, I'm not, right? Because why would I? But at the same time, make sure you're taking time to listen to you, and just I am a big believer in divine timing, and sometimes it feels like you get that big epiphany, that big flash in the sky. All of a sudden, you go on this course and you start to. But you did a lot of pre-work before going on the course, right? I'm sure there was a lot of there was a journey to becoming you, and just when you're ready, there are things the universe sends you to kind of expand your spiritual awakening. I'm a big believer that the spiritual awakening journey is like a lifetime thing. It's not a one-time thing. But that acceleration that you received on the first course, it almost feels like switching from the divine masculine to the divine feminine to truly start to release something. And then you went on to the second one, and it was even more of a release. And I just love. And then you had, you already had this the additional event scheduled. It's like the universe. That for me is being in flow. It's like whatever you had scheduled, the universe had a plan. It was like, and just the beauty of synchronicity of letting go and just trusting in that first experience. Like, oh my God, this was amazing. Let me sign up for the second one. Always check in with your intention, because sometimes we sign up for things because we want to be fixed.
Yeah, it's true, actually. That's true. Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I would say that. Well, funnily enough, like after after that second course, I got like a message from my guides because I was just learning how to use sort of the pendulum and stuff like that. And the message I got was, wake up already. And I was like, gee whiz, okay. I was like, well, that's
Yeah,
a pretty
our guys
straight
do
on.
have jokes.
I'm like, that's a
They have
pretty straight on
jokes. They have
message.
jokes.
But if I look back, Nimesh, there were so many signs, and I think this is part of me, that part of it that I think is still a bit raw for me and still hurts, because there was so many signs, so many people when I look back, who shared with me things about a number of things. There was someone like, and for me, actually claiming forgiveness was a really big thing. As I was going through this journey soon after I got diagnosed with a spine condition, I went through this point of just, in some ways, complete hopelessness. I felt quite hopeless at that time. And I landed up finding out about this, what's it called again? But anyway, it's this like frequency, and you have like these crystals. You can see that crystals, and these crystals. And I was just like, this is bananas. I have no clue what this is, but I did it anyway. And it was interesting because I cried, and I didn't expect to cry during this like alternative treatment session, and I'm a physician, right? And the stuff that came up around like my brother-in-law passing away, and I was like, okay. At the end of the session, I felt so weird that I needed to Google what like I felt. And I realized then I felt calm, and I've never quite understood what calm felt like, which is kind of crazy. And, the lady who conducted the session was so sweet because she was really concerned for my well-being. And, so she pulled an angel card for me. And the angel card was Archangel Raphael. And on the card, it actually said forgiveness.
Beautiful.
So in 2023, when I did claim forgiveness, I went back and sent her a message to say thank you, because I realized she was one of the many beautiful people that had come into my life to facilitate, to help, and to support me, and to give me the message. I did not have the capacity at that point in time to receive. I mean, I have many such moments, and I look back and I can see now very clearly. I'm like, oh, that person came in for help, kind of like the fiddler on the roof.
It's true. It's true.
Is what it is.
But the fact you recognize it now is powerful.
Oh yeah, no, that is true. That is very, very true.
And that's also the lesson, right? It's not. I mean, you could argue you missed out, but actually, no, you grew so much more from it because the awareness you got from it is powerful.
That's true. Very, very true. I love the way you looked at that. Yeah.
I have to ask you, so it's like in the moment on the first course, you realized that it's interesting when the masculine to the feminine journey feels like that's the journey that you've been on, and you're probably still on, but you realize that you're not great at receiving love. What do you like now?
Oh, I'm so much better at receiving love. I'm so much better at receiving compliments as well. Before, I couldn't even receive a compliment. It would make me feel really uncomfortable. Now I'm more open to receiving love. But it's funny because as I'm going through this journey, my understanding of the depth of love and the feeling of love is it's just so exquisite, because I always think like, oh my gosh, wow, this is so much love. This is what unconditional love is. And it's almost as if the universe goes like, no, there's more. And then I feel it even more. And then when I think I understand what unconditional love is, I get shown it at an even greater faith. And it makes me really emotional, because that is just what love is, right? It really is infinite. Yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So there's probably people listening that maybe resonate with not being able to feel love, not being in flow, kind of feel like they're missing out on something. I'll always remind people that wherever you are is perfect. You haven't missed anything. What is for you will always find you. And it really is about this moment. So I just want to make that point, because it really is about the magic in this moment. You haven't missed out on anything. And if you focus so much on the future, you're going to miss out on this moment. So I feel like it's important to mention that. But I'd love for you to share any feedback you have or any ideas you have for anyone that maybe is feeling like this conversation isn't for them. Feels like we're talking about somebody else. But somebody who really wants to be in flow, to be able to truly receive the unconditional love from the universe, what guidance would you give?
I would say two things. I think the one thing is just understanding what triggers you and getting familiar with your emotions. I think they're two really beautiful things, uh, and they really go a very, very far away, right? What I used to do in the beginning of the journey is every time I'd get triggered, I would just put it down on my iPhone, like a little bit of the context of the situation. And then when I got a moment, I would, either do a deep meditation or a meditation or just journal even and be like, once again, using the five whys, very, very masculine, but that's fine. That works, right? Because it's about using both energies, right? There's nothing wrong with one energy or the other energy. It's actually using them in
Oh,
combination where it's incredibly powerful. So I did. I used the five whys just to try to understand, like, where does this come from? Like, why? Why am I feeling this way? What is the mirror that's being held up to show me, right? So I would say that's the first one. I think it's really powerful. And the second one for me really is forgiveness, Namesh, because I think forgiveness of self is really so important. I know some people talk about it as potentially as bypassing. But for me, forgiveness is also a
yeah.
practice of like self-compassion. And when we still need to acknowledge all the feelings that we have, uh, for me, the practice of Ho'oponopono was really sort of fundamental in my journey, and I still use it, and I will actually uh, use it today as well to write it to myself. Um,
I love it.
And yeah, I really use it in the concept of writing a letter to myself, following like the four stages, which is I'm sorry, and then just listing out everything I'm sorry for. And just allowing that to just flow from like whatever's coming to your mind, just write it. And it's a lot of
Yes, finish
emotions.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so what comes up? Yeah.
a lot of emotions come up. Just as you're writing, I'm sorry, and then it's like, where like all the tears start flowing at the same time. So it's actually a
And it's powerful to release, right? Just it's such a powerful
no,
release. I love
no,
it.
100%. Because at the same time, you're also getting to acknowledge your emotions, right? And if you acknowledge your emotion, that's already allowing the energy to pass. And then the second part is please forgive me. And the third part is thank you. And the last part is I love you. And then just signing it off with your name. Uh, yeah, you can either tear the letter up. I always think it's better to burn it. It's not always the easiest to do that, to transmute the energy. But
And
anyway, uh, sometimes I just write it on my phone and I delete it. I mean, just do what works. I mean, I always do what works
yeah,
for you. But then I add another step is that I tell myself after all of that, I actually forgive myself. So
that's yeah.
yeah, so that I feel like that for me completes the cycle for myself or completes the cycle. And I think it's a really easy step. I think we underestimate the power of like forgiveness.
And forgiving yourself.
Yes, yes,
That's
forgiveness
the
yourself. Yes.
it's like yeah, we forgive others, but we sometimes forget to forgive ourselves. And I feel like that's the most important thing. So I love. Um, just quickly, can you talk about the five whys? I don't want to leave and just kind of well, what are the five whys for you when kind of if somebody wanted to go follow that same process, what does that look like?
Yeah, so you'd feel back if you just say like, uh, you know, depending on why you were on the anger, right? And you'll be like, oh, why was I angry? And then you'll get the first layer, and you're like, oh, okay, why is that the case? Next layer. Oh, why is that the case? Next layer. Oh, why is that the case? Next layer. Just ask them one question every time you get something. Why? And it's invoking it from a place of being inquisitive, right? Just to understand to evoke understanding,
Yeah.
right?
And it's peeling the onion, right? It's getting to the center of your of the why, because your human mind plays tricks on you. So it's a beautiful way of peeling back, peeling back. What is the real? So I love it.
Yeah.
Such a simple techniques.
Yes. Root cause
So
analysis from business school. 5 whys.
I love it. So as we kind of coming near to the end, I'd love to know more about your spiritual journey. I mean, when we first met, you channeled light language. So I'm curious for you just to give us an update on your spiritual journey. Where did the light language come from? How do you feel? How do you feel your connection with your guides is, and kind of anything you can share from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's been an interesting journey for me because, I mean, at some point I was like, am I going crazy? Um, in the beginning, because I was like, what's going on? I think this is where community is also really important, Namesh, because I think, if someone is sort of going through this healing journey, spiritual journey, whatever, that you also surround yourself with the community. Otherwise, at times you can feel like you're going crazy. So I felt like I was going crazy a few times, especially with the light language. And I was like, "Ooh, this sounds really like what's going on, right?" Uh, and I recorded it when it first came out, I recorded it like a couple of times. And then I asked one of my friends, and she was like, no, that's light language. So I was like, okay, that's light language. And so that made me feel a little bit more comfortable that like I wasn't making things up.
I love it.
Yeah, because you don't, it's just like,
I know it's true.
it's
It's true. It's unknown, right?
it's so out there, right? In terms of things from where I came,
Well, whatever normal looks
whatever
like, right?
normal looks like. So I was just like, okay. And I think in terms of the types of like frequencies or that are channeled now is quite it's more expansive than it was before, of course. It's quite different. Um, Once again, the mesh of not I don't have I follow this always. So I've not actually had a teacher or anything. I literally just go.
Beautiful.
I just go where I feel guided to go. I feel there's a teacher in everyone. So everyone I meet, I feel that there's a teacher in everyone for me personally.
Beautiful.
And so yeah, I'm still learning.
It's almost like the universe. The universe is your teacher, right?
Oh,
Send
100%.
the right people along. So, putting you on the spot a little bit, but do you feel inspired to share any light language now? Anything coming through for you?
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that I'm not always consciously aware of what's being channeled. So just so that everyone is is aware of that. Um, and it's going to be the Arcturians that want to come through, and some other beings as well. So let's see what comes through. So I'm just going to invite everyone to close their eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, just letting go of what no longer serves you, just allowing yourself to make space and taking another deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And the last one in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as always, it's always up to you whether you choose to receive and accept. Annaraya shaya kuaya, amma shaya tuaralaina nara kuasha, analaralaya tua nanara, ushalaranaya tuaralayesha, ashalaranaya tuaralanayasha, ananara lasha uashaya yaisha, ashalaranaya tuaralayanana, ushalaranaya shaduare dia shayanua kalarasha, amananarala. Uashayananara lashayama puai shayakalarasha. Ushalarananara lashayama halarasha ukasha. Ananara layasha naya uayananara luasha. Ashalaranayasha duara lasha amma halaranasha ya duarana. Ananaralaisha, ananaralauaia, ananaralausha, amahalara, ushalaranaya dwaralashaya, nanaralashaya namukasha. And when you feel ready, I invite you to open your eyes. And so part of the message was around really about being kind and compassionate to oneself. And it's almost as if they sense that there's a lot of people feeling very lonely as they're going through this process of the changes and the shifts. And it's just a friendly reminder to say you're not alone, we're not alone. There's so much of support that is there for each and every one of us, both in all realms, I would say, and just to remember that. And we don't have to have all the answers, but we can definitely put the intention out, right? So there is a couple of times in a day. I mean, today I was sitting on the balcony and I was contemplating something for the business, and I literally just looked into the sky, was really present, and I just said, "How?" And that's it. I left it like that. With a background, because I know that the how will come. I just need to ask for the how, right? So if we don't ask and we don't engage, then, how can we receive the support, right? Because at the end of the day, everything in this world, Nimesh, is co-creation, right? Just like you and I right here,
100%. Yeah.
and the light language that's channeled, that's all co-creation. So, it's not just about co-creating in the physical realm, but also being able to co-create with like other dimensions, other realms. And I think sometimes we forget about that element of
Hmm.
co-creation as well, right?
Yeah, and it's important that we congratulate ourselves too, right? We're part of that. And asking for support from the human realm, but also from our guides, is such an important and powerful thing. And sometimes we forget. We expect our guides, as an example, to have all their answers, but unless we tell them how we need support, what answers, how are they going to know, right? It's a co-creation. So such a simple and powerful thing to do. And it's just, if I feel this conversation we've had through this whole episode, for me, it is really all about keeping it simple and listening. It's not, you talked about just breathing, just feeling, switching from I think to I feel. How do you feel about something? Sounds so simple, but actually it's in the way that we're programmed is quite different. It's quite alien, right? It's not, we're programmed to make decisions from the head, not from the heart. And it's like when we switch to I feel, actually we're going against many years of programming, right? So, but I actually agree. I feel like the spiritual journey is a lot more simple than we actually give ourselves. We want to complicate it by, so much. And of course, we've got to do the healing work. Of course, we've got to, if we get triggered, then sit with it and ask, how is it serving us? And, even just taking a note on your phone and then doing a meditation on it later, perfect. But what we've always tended to do is push it down, push it down, push it down. And we're like a volcano, eventually it's going to come up. So, your triggers are your blessings, asking for support, even a simple exercise like writing a letter, just the 5 whys. So much wisdom has come through. So thank you for sharing. And as we come in to kind of close out this episode, I would love for you to share any final bits of wisdom you have. If there's like a journal prompt that maybe comes to your heart, if there's any support you need from the community for people to reach out to you, what does that look like? Anything that's in your heart, I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I think I'd add one additional trick,
Good.
Nimesh, which is when something comes up more than 2 to 3 times, it means you're not seeing something. Uh, so normally if something comes up more like 2 or 3 times, I'm like, okay, I hear you, I see. So it's just, I think just
It's
being
an
mindful of
important
that.
word.
And that's a really good trick because Even sometimes I don't like, I mean, depending on where I'm at. So I think that's a really sort of nice one. I don't really have too many journal prompts, to be honest. To me, I think it's just free flow. Just checking in with how you feel in a day is already huge. How do I feel? Why do I feel this way? And then you go into the five whys. Keep it simple. I think all the journal prompts and stuff for me is just a little too complicated. How do I feel? And then go from there.
That is a general prompt. So
Okay.
you started with I don't have any general prompts, and you shared some general prompts. So
Okay, there we
anyway,
go.
I love it. I love it. And how can people reach out to you? What does that look like?
So I am on Instagram. So I have two Instagram handles. One is at Suhina369, and then the other one is called Inside Out Revival. I'm not really sure what the handle is, but the two accounts are linked.
I will. I will share the link in the show notes.
I'm not as active, but that's on my things to do this year is be more active and share some of that wisdom as well. Otherwise, alternatively, I mean, please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn as well. I do share a lot of posts around like, yeah, I guess my realizations and how that interplays with like work, etc. It doesn't go into the realm of spirit. It's more sort of plain vanilla, because for me it's really important that it's also receptive to the audience as well, to be able to receive a wisdom in a way that sort of is relatable, right? So
Sure. And our words carry tones and healing modalities, and it's not always it's the intention of the words that comes through. So I've loved this conversation. Thank you for sharing so openly. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I love the synchronicities that we shared and the synchronicity of the connection. So thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest and sharing your heart, your knowledge, and I'm sending so much love and light out to everybody. It is an interesting time, and Suhina mentioned it. It is a time where you might feel lonely, but actually, I feel it's a time that we're getting more support from the other realms than ever before. So allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to be supported. Ask for help. It's powerful to ask for help, right? And it's just as we're shifting from the masculine likes to do everything on his own, right? Is that, asking for help is a weakness. Asking for help is actually, for me, is a sign of strength. So ask for help. Ask for help from the universe. Ask for help from the planet. Reach out to the people that you know can hold and support you through this phase. Sending so much love and light out to everybody. And Suhina, I'm going to hand over to you to close us out.
fantastic. So just a massive thank you, Nimesh, to you and to everyone that's listening as well. Just sending so much of love, compassion to everyone, and filling everyone with a whole bunch of love and light. And we've got this. We all do, and we're here to support each other. And so I'm going to leave on that beautiful note, and just a lot of gratitude for you, Namesh, all the beings, everyone that's been listening with us today. So really, thank you.
Thank you. Sending so much love, light. Bye for now.